Hey guys, welcome back to Physical Biology. Today we'll be doing KELANTAN Trials Paper, Paper 1. Before I make this video, I went through all the questions in this paper and I realized that the question in this paper is kind of tougher compared to other state paper. So that's why I make this video so that I can save you a little bit of time to study for your SPM Biology. Alright, so without further ado, let's get started. Now, let's look at the questions 1 here. Diagram 1 shows an orientation of the animal's body. This is the fish. And what is T orientation? T orientation is pointing backwards. Now, if you guys want to memorize these kind of questions, you can use my methods here. Basically, when we talk about fish, there are 4 directions. The first one is the anterior. Pointing upwards, this one is distal. Backwards, posterior. Downwards, ventral. Okay, so we always start from the head and then we go clockwise, and you realize that it always follows the sequence A, D, P, and then the last one is V. So T, this answer should be posterior. Answer should be C for question 1. Alright, let's look at question 2. Diagram 2 shows an amoeba species structure. We have A, B, C, D here. Which components labeled A, B, C, D are involved in the osmoregulations process? Osmo, H2O. Regulations means regulate. If you want to regulate the water in If the amoeba wants to regulate the water in the bodies, it should be done by an organelles called vacuole, which is B. The answer should be B. How about A? A is nucleus, C is cell membrane, and D is a food vacuole. Question 3. Diagram 3 shows the process of transporting substances into a plant's roots. Water, mineral salt. What is the process involved? Water, mineral salt. Alright guys, in order to absorb water from the soil, the plants at first, they need to pump in the mineral salt. Now remember, I said pump in. They did use energy to pump in the mineral salt into the roots. Let me show you in a bigger picture. Let's zoom in into this area. Now try to imagine this is the roots. Try to draw it bigger. Okay, then we have the mineral salt. This salt is actively pumped in to the roots so that the cell sap of the root can be hypertonic to the solutions in the soil. The soil will be hypotonic compared to the cell sap in the root. When the soil is hypotonic, then the water can diffuse into the root through osmosis. So the water confirmed will move into the roots by osmosis. But at first, you need to pump in the mineral salt, which is through active transport. So the answer here should be water is osmosis. B and D are correct. And mineral salt must be in active transport. So answer, question 3, answer is D. Now look at question 4. Diagram 4 shows a cell has been immersed in some concentrations of sucrose solutions. Which points A, B, C, D on the graph represent the concentration of sucrose solutions for the cell? Let's look at the diagram first. So the diagram shows you that the plasma membrane is being pulled away from the cell wall into the middle. What happened? It means that water from the vacuole diffused out through osmosis, and it creates a low pressure area in the middle, and then it pulls the plasma membrane towards the center of the cell. Now, if water is moving out, it means that outside the sucrose solutions, it is hypertonic. Okay, and inside must be hypotonic. Now, the question asks you about this. Which point A, B, C, D represent the concentration of sucrose solution for the cell? So the sucrose concentration of sucrose solutions must be hypertonic to the cell. Must be hypertonic to the cell. We look at the graph here. Percentage of mass change. We're talking about the mass change and then the concentration of the sucrose solutions. Now, let's say we look back to this cell. Let's say the cell has the mass of 3 grams. Let's say, for example, only 3 grams. So if the water move out from the cell, I'm sure the cell mass will maybe drops to 2 grams. Am I right? So let's say another example, we have a cell here, and initially this cell is 3 grams as well, but water moved into the cell, correct or not? So if water move into the cell, if you measure the mass of the cell again, I'm sure the mass of the cell will increase, let's say 4 grams. So if you can understand this concept, then we can look at the graph here. Now this is the graph. Okay, this is the graph. So let's pretend the mass of the percentage of mass change is 0, 0%. That means no change to the cell. So just now we mentioned that the original size of the cell is the original mass of the cell is 3 grams. So if there is no change of the mass of the cell, it should be 3 grams here. So let's say if we pump in the water, to the cell, then the cell might increase in mass to 4 grams. Then it should be somewhere above the horizontal line at the x-axis. Am I right? So let's say this is a positive 10% change, 10% gain of the mass. So it will be A, B. It will be A and B. And the solutions, it is hypotonic. Why hypotonic? Only hypotonic will make the water diffuse into the cell. Alright, so you will have a positive mass gain. Now let's say you have nothing, no change here, 0% of mass gains here. So there's no water move in and out would be the same rate. It means that 0% change of the mass, and the mass of the cell will remain 3 grams. C will be the point when the concentration of sucrose solution is isotonic. Now, what about if the percentage of the mass has a negative change? It means that water move out from the cell. Then the mass of the cell will decrease, let's say to 2 grams. So you can see D will be the one where the concentration of sucrose solution is hypertonic to the cell. Why? Because only hypertonic will make the water diffuse out from the cell. So the answer here should be D. Alright, so let's look at the question 5 here. Diagram 5 shows 2 types of nucleic acid. We have R and S. Which of the following characteristics differentiate R and S? R is the DNA. S is the RNA. How I know? I look at the DNA strands. So the DNA strands here, we have 2 strands, double-stranded. So R confirmed is the DNA. S must be the RNA because it has the single-stranded here. Which of the following characteristics differentiate R and S? So both of them carry genetic codes. Yes. True statement, but wrong answer. Contain 4 types of nitrogenous base: A, T, G, C for DNA, or A, U, G, C for RNA. Yes, okay, 4 types of nucleotides. Consists of double helix polynucleotide chain. So this answer should be C. Why? Because for DNA, it is double helix. How about RNA? RNA got only 1 strand, so it should not be double helix. So answer will be C. This is the characteristic that differentiate R and S. Okay, 6. Diagram 6 shows the movement of water molecule in the xylem vessels. What is the force X? Now you can see the force X is like pulling Now, this kind of things, this kind of informations, I mean, the structures of the proteins have been pulled out from KSSM textbook. So I didn't see any structures of proteins subtopics can be found in the KSSM biology textbook, but I did see some question like this in the practice book or maybe in the trials like here. So it's good to know more, right? So it's good to know more. Now look at this one. Which of the following components synthesize the structures of the protein? If you want, okay, no, now look at these questions. This question is a bit complicated when they talk about the synthesis, the structure of the protein. Now, what about if I remove the middle parts here? It is the component that synthesis of protein. It should be easier, right? It should be easier, right? So the question here is like we have A, B, and C, and D. You need to recognize, okay, all the organelles here first. So A, this one is the RER. Here will be the ribosome. Okay, this one I believe this is the mitochondrion, chloroplast, and Golgi apparatus. B and D definitely out. A and C. So Golgi apparatus only modified packaging and transport the protein. But when come to the synthesis of protein, this job, it belongs to the ribosome here. So the answer here should be A for question 7. Alright, so A is for question 7. Diagram 8.1 shows a phase in a cell cycle. In diagram 8.2 shows the longitudinal sections of a root tip. Okay, which part able A, B, C, D at the root tips where M phase can be found? So M phase, this one is the mitotic phase. It is the, let's make it simpler. It should be the mitosis. Mitotic phase, mitosis. So, which side is a tissue or cell that is actively dividing? Because mitosis means cell divisions. So, which area is the answer? It should be D. D is the meristematic tissue. Meristematic tissue. Okay, what's so special about this cell? All these tissue, they are very active in cell divisions. They are very active in cell division. That's why you can see M phase can be found quite frequently in region D. Alright, so let's look at question 9. The following information is the characteristic of genetic disorder. So we have the slanted eyes, shortened limbs, and mental retarded. Okay, based on all these symptoms, we know that this is the symptom of Down syndrome. This is a syndrome of Down syndrome. So when it comes to Down syndrome has extra 21st set of chromosome. So you have one more extra chromosome. Normal person only got 2 chromosomes, but for Down syndrome, they have 3 chromosomes. So what is the causes that lead to Down syndrome? We have a word called non-disjunction. Okay, non-disjunctions. So non-disjunctions, it always happen in the anaphase. So answer is C for these questions. It could be anaphase 1. So let's say in the future, they give you, in SPM, maybe, it give you another options called anaphase 2. So anaphase 2 could be correct as well. So because non-disjunctions happens in anaphase 1 and anaphase 2. Alright, so let's continue. Question 10. Diagram 9 shows an activity that has been carried out by an individual. So which of the following equations shows the respiration that occur in the quadriceps muscle of the individual? So this guy is running. Basically, it want to show you the question want to show you that this guy is carrying out the lactic acid fermentation. So answer should be D. Yeah, answer should be D. Okay, so next one. Diagram 10 shows part of the fish respiratory organs. This is the gills. And which of the following characteristics refer to the respiratory structure? Okay, what we can see here is we have a lot of this kind of structure. It's extending out. Why they want to have this kind of structure? Now, when it comes to biology, when you see this kind of structure, there is only one answer. You want to increase the total surface area. Okay, you want to increase the total surface area. So when you see total surface area, this should be the correct answer. Answer should be D for questions 11. Okay, question 12. Diagram 11 shows a line of epithelial cells at the gastric glands. We have the cell P. What happens if cell P is malfunctions? Wow, these questions, I believe that this question a lot of students cannot do it because in your textbook they didn't show you the special characteristic of those three cells: the parietal cell, the chief cell, and also the mucus cell. But it's okay, we learn from these questions. All right, so cell P is at the bottom of the gland. This one, cell P, it should be the chief cell. In the middle one, you can see there's a very sharp things here. Okay, it looks like a needles. Now this cell is called the parietal cell. Parietal. And on top of that, we don't have the sharp one, the sharp thingy on the cell. That cell is called the mucus cell. The mucus cell. Okay, so what happens if cell P is malfunctions? So that's why we need to know what is the functions of the chief cell first. So the chief cell, it has the ability to produce types of enzymes called the pepsinogen. But this pepsinogen is inactive. When it's active, it's going to be converted into pepsin. So what is the function of the pepsin? Pepsin is going to digest the protein. Okay? Digest the protein. Digest the protein to polypeptides. So now let's say we don't have the chief cell or it malfunctions. We cannot produce a pepsinogen. No pepsinogen, no pepsin. No pepsin, it cannot digest the protein into polypeptide. So the questions here, less mucus is produced. This is done by the mucus cell. Slow down the hydrolysis of the protein. Yes, okay. Stop the activity of salivary amylase. This is done by the hydrochloric acid, which is not related. Stop the growth of the bacteria in the stomach. Hydrochloric acid, not related. So the answer here should be B. Okay, this answer should be B. Question 13. Table shows the volume of fruit juice required to decolorize the colors of 1 cm³ of 0.1% of DCPIP solution. So which of the fruit juice contains the highest vitamin C? When we want to do the DCPIP test, the lesser volume of fruit juice is needed, the higher the percentage of vitamin C contains in the fruit juice. So we want to find out the smallest number here, which is 0.5. So this will be the answer. Okay, so question 14. A person is involved in an accident and needs blood transfusions. After checkup, he has antibody of NDA and NDB. So what kind of blood group it has NDA and NDB? The answer should be blood group O. Blood group O, because they have nothing on the red blood cell. There's no antigen on the red blood cell. So they will produce two types of antigen to protect themselves, which is the NDA and NDB. So any blood groups that consist of antigen A and antigen B will not be able to donate to the blood group O. So the answer A, wrong, B, wrong, A, B, and wrong. So the answer here should be C, blood group O. Only the blood groups O person can receive the bloods from blood group O person. So O to O. Question 15. Diagram 12 shows an active disease prevention campaign that was conducted around the world. We use the COVID-19 vaccines here. So which of the following blood cell is stimulated after the process? Okay, basically, vaccine, it consists a lot of the weakened pathogens. Okay, so why we want to inject the weakened pathogens? Because we want to stimulate our body to produce the things called antibody. So what is the white blood cell which is able to produce the antibody? The answer should be lymphocyte. For those who haven't memorized the 5 types of white blood cell yet, please go and memorize because this is super important. So look at these questions. How I know A is a lymphocyte? Because it has a big nucleus and the cytoplasm is clear. So big nucleus and clear. This is lymphocyte. Answer is A. Question 16. Diagram 13 shows a cross-section of a spinal cord containing the neuron. What is S, T, and U? S is the sensory neurons, T is the relay neuron, U will be the motor neuron. How I know that? Because S, you can see there's a cell body in the middle. Can you see that or not? This is cell body. The cell body is in the middle. And then U is connected to the effector. When it's connected to the effector, this must be the motor neuron. So S is a sensory neuron, and U is the motor neuron, sensory neuron. So the answer here should be C. Okay, in the middle, T is the relay neuron. Okay, diagram 14 is a graph which shows the change in the blood glucose level in a woman. So the blood glucose level, normal blood glucose level, normal blood glucose level is here. So our body is very strong because they are able to bring back the blood glucose level back to normal. If we have a sudden drops, our body is able to bring it back to the normal blood glucose level. So you look at this lady. This lady has a very sharp drops of blood glucose level, but in the stage B, we do something to her body. So we increase back the blood glucose level. This is what we want. Okay. So the question asks you what happened at P. So P, the lady was A, definitely out. She ate fish, definitely out. But when come to this one, okay, B and C, this one is the most complicated one. Insulin or glucagon. So for here, I'll just explain what the insulin do. Insulin can convert the glucose to glycogen. Okay, so if we are converting glucose to glycogen at stage P, then our blood glucose level will further drop even more. B will not be the answer. The last answer should be C. So why the answer is C? Because glucagon is able to convert the glycogen to glucose. So we want to increase the level of glucose in our blood. So this is what we did in stage B. We want to increase the level of glucose so that it will bring it back to the normal blood glucose level. So the answer here is C. Alright, so let's continue. Diagram 15 shows the methods to regulate the human's body temperature by the effector. So which of the following regulations of blood glucose through the physical method? We want to find out the physical method. So physical methods, this is our thyroid glands. Basically, we release the thyroxine to increase our body temperature. So this one is chemical method. Okay, chemical method. Erect, okay, the hair erects, hair erections. This one is a physical method. The release of the adrenaline is something related to hormone. This one definitely chemicals. And the last one is the vasodilations. The vasodilation, this one should be the answer. So answer here should be 2 and 4. C for these questions. Okay, now look at question 19. Diagram 16 shows a structure of nephron. Nephron can be found in our kidney. A diabetic patient faces symptoms of thirst, frequent urinations. Which of the following explains the conditions? When you're feeling thirsty and you have a frequent urination, which means that the nephrons, they remove a lot of water. So that your body start to lose a lot of water, and you have a frequent urinations because all the water went to the urinary bladder already. Okay, it went to the urinary bladder for urinations. Okay, why is this so? We just want to find out, okay, which option is talking about the water is being less reabsorbed back to our blood. More water, definitely out. Okay, we don't absorb more water. Less water is reabsorbed into the blood capillary from Y. Where's Y? Let's look at this one. Y is collecting that. Okay, so when there's less water being reabsorbed back to our body, so it makes more water go to the urinary bladder, and eventually more urinations. Okay, more urination. So the answer here should be B for questions 19. Okay, question 20. Diagram 17 shows the human skull structure. We have the P. What is the type of joint at P? Now, can you move your skull? You cannot move your skull, right? You cannot lift up your skull. You cannot just open like this and then close it back. So when you cannot open or move the joint, we call this an immovable joint. So answer here should be C. Which of the following diagram is the correct sequence to show the stages in early developments of a zygote in human reproductive system? Okay, so we have 2 cells here. The number of cells should be increased along the process. So we look at this one, we have 4 cells and then straight away become like this, which is definitely wrong. And we look at C, 2 cells, 4 cells, 4 cells, a lot of cells here, and the cells start to move to the other side of the ball. It makes the middle of the ball empty. This one should be answer C. And this one should be answer C. But what is this? This in biology we call it as a plastocyst. Plastocyst. And we can see there are a lot of cells accumulated here, and we call this as an inner cell mass. Okay, so the plastocyst should be developed from the morula here. Alright, so let's look at the second questions. Now, a woman had to remove both of her fallopian tube by surgery because of a tumor problems. Which of the following processes can still occur naturally in the female reproductive system after surgery? Okay guys, look at this. If you want to remove part of the fallopian tube, okay, so this fallopian tube, the functions of the fallopian tube is to deliver the ovum from the ovary to the uterus. So let's say you are going to remove the fallopian tube, you are not going to deliver the ovum, but you still have the ovary. When you still have the ovary, you still can produce the ovum naturally. So the answer here should be ovulation, because the ovulations, it means that, okay, the release of secondary oocyte. Okay, you still can release the secondary oocyte through a natural way. But can you do implantation? Definitely not, because the fallopian tube here is being removed. You are not able to send the ovum, okay, naturally to the uterus for implantation. So B is not the answer. How about fertilization? Fertilization will not occur as well, because the sperm, they cannot move through the fallopian tube and meet the ovum and fertilize the ovum naturally. So this one, no. And pregnancy, definitely not one, is not one of the answer. So B, C, D are wrong. Answer should be A. Okay, question 23. Diagram 18 shows the cross sections of stem from plants are. Which of the following parts label is matched correctly with its functions? W is phloem. Okay, W is phloem because it's located outside. Any tissue that is located external or outside of this ring, is called the phloem. Okay, it's called the phloem. And anything that is inside of this ring is called the xylem. Okay, so what's the name of this ring? It is called the vascular cambium. Vascular cambium. How about X and Y? Y is the cortex. X is the cork. Okay, X is the cork. So the question here is talking about which one is the correct one. W is a phloem. W is definitely not providing the mechanical support to the plants. This is done by the xylem. Protect the stem from insect and pathogens attack when epidermis crack. Yep, okay. So question 23 is B, because cortex is the hard tissue trying to protect the internal structures of the bark. So answer is B for these questions. Alright, so let's move on. Which plants is the biennials plants? Okay, this question is very easy because the answer is B, the beetroot. Diagram 19 shows an experiment carried out to study photosynthesis. We have the black box, we have the sunlight. Now definitely sunlight is kind of useless here because we are hiding everything's inside a black box. The black box, everything inside the black box will not able to receive the sunlight. So if they are not able to receive the sunlight, the plants here, the aquatic plants here, is not going to carry out photosynthesis and the oxygen level will drop. Which of the experiment results describe the conditions happens after 2 hours? After 2 hours, the small fish and the plants will die. Okay, they will die. So A and B wrong. Why? Because low concentration of oxygen, they cannot receive the sunlight. So answer is D for these questions. Question 26. Diagram 20 shows an equation of a process which occurs in the chloroplast. Question 26. We have the H2O here, and then it will be split into H plus and OH minus. We call this process as photolysis. Photolysis. We are using light to break down, okay, lysis breakdowns are the water molecule. So we call it photolysis. And this reaction will only occur in somewhere that can receive the sunlight, that can absorb the sunlight. Where is it? The chloroplast or chlorophyll. So where is the chloroplast and chlorophyll? Oh, the whole thing here is called the chloroplast. My bad, guys. So the whole thing here is called the chloroplast, but there's only one part it has the chlorophyll, which is the thylakoids. So answer here is B. B is the thylakoid, which consists of the chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is able to absorb the sunlight to do the photolysis process. So answer is B for these questions. Okay, so continue. We have the diagram 21 shows the result obtained by the students studying the effect of the nutrient deficiency of the growth of the pea seedling. Okay, so you guys need to use your eyes power to observe these two diagrams. So what you guys can see here is the roots developments here is not really good. Okay, roots unhealthy. Root growth. That's why you can see the leaf only 2. Okay, the stem is not growing. Okay, the stem is not growing. So because of the unhealthy root growth. So what kind of nutrients is needed to add inside the culture solutions? So this question is very easy. The answer should be phosphorus. Now why I say easy? Because this is a straightforward questions. You don't need to think, but you just need to memorize. If you can memorize, then you can answer these kind of questions. Okay, so question 28. Diagram 22 shows two types of plants with different nutritional adaptations, plantis and plantule. What describe X? Now, X pointing at these two plants, which means that you need to find out the similarities. Okay, similarities. The similarity between these two plants. Now, T is the Respiration. Respiration is a parasite. Now remember, Respiration is a parasite because they absorb the nutrients from the host. But for U is the bird nest. Okay, the bird nest. So the bird nest fern is not going to absorb the nutrients from the host, but because they got the leaf, which is able to do the photosynthesis to create their own food. But why is they still need to grow on the host? Because they want to get more sunlight. They need to get to a higher place to get more sunlight. So you can see there's one idea when I tried to explain just now. In my explanation, I mentioned two things. Both of these two plants, they live on the host. They live on the host. But one absorbs the nutrients from the host, and plants U, they only need the height from the host. So the answer here should be C, live on the host. Question 29. Diagram 23 shows an experiment carried out studying a process that occurs on the leaf. We have the water droplets here. Which of the following processes related to the study? Okay. Evaporation is wrong, translocation definitely wrong, gutations and transpiration. The answer here should be D. Why I choose transpirations over gutations? Because I see the sunlight here. Right? I see the sunlight here. Gutations will only happen when the environment is cold, and transpirations will happen when the environment is hot. So I choose transpiration. Question 30. Diagram 24 shows an activity to study the transport process in the plants. Now we have the red water, blue water, and yellow water. Basically, we want to see how this, I believe this is a celery, how this celery transport the red water all the way up to the leaf. Which of the following tissue function in above? If the plant is transporting water, they need to use a tissue called xylem. Want to find out which one is xylem? Let's look at the diagram here. Okay, so what I can see here is A is not the answer. Okay, C is also not the answer. D is the phloem, not the answer, and B will be the answer, which is the xylem. Okay, we can see a lot of holes here, and then we can see the trachea here. This is the xylem. And what is this, guys? What is this? This is mitosis. Okay, this is chromosome. You can see the chromosome is like lying in the middle of the nucleus, and then some of the chromosomes just get condensed. It shows you that all these cells, they are actively dividing. They are actively dividing. When it is actively dividing, it means that this tissue most probably can be found in the meristematic cell. Okay, the meristematic tissue. They are the meristematic tissue. Okay, question 31. Final remediation using water hyacinth can be used to treat water contaminated with ammonia. Which graph should show the result if the treatment can be done? So, yep, if the plants can absorb the ammonia, the graph should be decreasing. Okay, so this one increase, no. Increase, no. Increase, no. So the answer here should be A. Kind of easy, what, these questions, huh? Okay, next questions. Question 32. Diagram 25 shows a seedling exposed to the light. from one direction. When the light is coming from these directions, of course the stem want to grow in these directions so that they can get more sunlight. Okay. Which of the following shows the condition of a seedling after a week? So after a week, it will grow towards the sunlight. So answer will be C. Can you see the dots here? All these dots, they are showing you the auxin actually. Auxin will always accumulate at the shaded regions of the stem so that it will stimulate this side of the stem to elongate. When this side elongate, this one no change, it will grow the stem towards the light. So this is the functions. All right. Y and Z are plant hormones that have specific functions, can be produced naturally and synthesized in the lab. Y is inhibits the germinations. Okay, that means we will keep the seed in the seed conditions. We don't want the seed to germinate. Z promote the fruit ripening. This one confirm ethylene. Okay, I'm sure you guys know what is this, but then why maybe you guys cannot memorize. So we choose Z, ethylene. So B and D are wrong. So is the answer A or C? Abscisic or auxin? Now auxin normally they are the growth hormone, just like the human's growth hormone. It always stimulate the plants to grow in somewhere. But abscisic, because it is sick, what? See, it is sick. When you are sick, do you have energy to germinate? Do you have the energy to germinate? No. So abscisic is the hormone that inhibit the growth of the plants. So it should be inhibit germination, abscisic acid. Answer is C. Alright, so let's continue question 34. Diagram 26 shows mature ovule structures of the following plants. Which of the following labeled parts is involved in double fertilization? X and Y. Okay, X and Y. So the rest, W and Z, are not useful. They will degenerate after the double fertilization. So basically, the X and Y, the X sound. X and Y. Last 5 questions. Which of the following diagram shows the hierarchy in the classification of organism? Okay. Don't kiss Lucy, cat, because, okay, for God's sake. So D, K, P, C, O, F, genus, species. Answer is B. Question 36. Diagram 27 shows sterile solutions used to wash contact lens. Okay, we have the special solution to wash the contact lens. Okay, why not we use the tap water? Why not we use tap water? Because tap water is not sterile. So you can see they purposely mention this word sterile. What is the meaning of sterile? It means very, very clean. There's no organism can be found in the solution because sterile. But when we use the tap water is not sterile. Okay, we have one protozoa can be found in the tap water, which will destroy your eyes. This protozoa is called a acanth amoeba. Okay, it's a type of protozoa. So we find the answer here. Tap water contains protozoa that can damage the eye cornea. So this is the answer, D. That's why we need to use a special solution to wash your contact lens. Question 37. Diagram 28 is a pie chart that illustrates the ecosystem. We have the P, Q, and R. R make up the biggest portions. Q make up the smallest portions here. So Q should be the species. Okay, it should be the species, the smaller portions. And then R is the biggest one. R should be the community. So answer here should be D for question 37. Graph 1 shows the release of methane gases into the atmosphere from decaying process and agriculture area. What actions should be taken to reduce the adverse effect of the gases? Now, methane gas is last time we talked about greenhouse effect, correct? Not greenhouse effect. Greenhouse effect. So the greenhouse gases are. We always talk about CO2. CO2 is the main gases that will cause the greenhouse effect. But methane gas will be the second one. Okay, methane gas will be the second one that cause greenhouse effect and global warming. So if you want to reduce the methane gas, what action you need to take? Yes, okay, you want to modify the energy source to become renewable energy. Yes, this one can reduce the greenhouse gases. Replants the trees which has been cut down. Yes, 1 and 2. Use biodegradable plastic, not related to the global warming. Reduce the use of pesticide, not related to the greenhouse gases. So answer here should be 1 and 2. Plants that not only will absorb CO2, they will also absorb the methane gas. So trees is the best solution to solve the greenhouse, to solve the global warming issue. So the answer should be 1 and 2. Question 39. Diagram 39 shows a monohybrid cross between a black fur mice and a white fur mice. Black fur is dominant traits over the white fur. We have the big B, small b, and small b. What is the phenotype ratio for the cross? You want to cross them together, and eventually, first we look at the gametes they will produce first. So this one, each gamete can only have one allele. This is the Mendel first law. Okay, this is the Mendel first law. So you can see one gamete can only have one allele. So these gametes will cross with this one. Okay, cross with this one. Cross again and again to produce the offspring with big B, small b, big B, small b, small b, small b, small b, small b. So this is 50% and 50% black fur and white fur. So the answer here should be 50 and 50. C. Alright, so let's continue. Last questions. Diagram 30 shows identical twins with different traits. This twins is shorter. Okay, this twins is taller. Kind of sad, they have both of them that share the same DNA, but one is shorter, one is taller. For me, I will jealous. So which of the following is correct explanation about the traits? It's not talking about DNA as I mentioned just now. Both of these twins, identical twins, they should sharing the same DNA. They should share the same DNA. This could be something that is affected by the environment. Okay, environment. Affected by environment. Okay, we look back to this diagram. Okay, they have different height. Different height is the types of variations. Am I right? It is the type of variations, and this because they are different, so this is the variations. And these variations, height variations, is a continuous variations. Why continuous? Because it can be affected by the environment. We just need to follow this idea, continuous variation, then you can find the answer here. A trait is controlled by a single gene. Single gene, this one is done by these continuous variations. These continuous variations. Affected by gene only. The height is not only affected by gene, but it could be affected by the diet. Okay, diet is not about DNA, so this one, B, is also wrong. Okay, the height is also affected by diet. Examples of these continuous variations. No, we are talking about continuous variations here. D, have different eating habits and lifestyle. Yes, this is the environment factor. So it's affecting the continuous variations. Okay, so question 40 is D. Alright guys, I hope this video helped you guys in your study, and in the next video I will prepare some analysis on the trials papers and we find out what is the question that can be most probably higher chance to come out in your SPM. So I will see you guys in the next video. Remember to sub my channels and like my video to show me a little bit of support. All the best in your study. Bye.